So I'm assuming that everyone, whether a lifelong fan of the series or a complete newbie, walked out of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie understanding everything that happened, with every detail making complete sense in every aspect.
Right? Wrong!
Look, it's no secret that the FNAF movie is not a one-to-one adaptation of the game's story. Neither is it a one-to-one adaptation of the books either. Using certain clues, events, dialogue choices in the FNAF movie, and even some of the influence of the games and book series from the entire franchise, I tried to piece together a timeline of sorts. Just something that could be a chronological representation of the time that passes between the events that happened before the actual movie, and maybe even a little bit into the future and where the eventual sequels might go from here. I also want to reiterate that this is my personal interpretation of the film's story, characters, and events. Of course, things like the future sequels and maybe even the official novelization of the movie could prove me wrong. Who knows? But that is always part of the fun in making videos like these, to see what aspects I may have gotten right and things I probably got totally wrong. Anyway, let's see what the FNAF movie's timeline has for us in store. Before the year 1979, William Afton, the sole owner of Fazbear Entertainment and a place called Fredbear's Family Diner, decided to open a new restaurant called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, using his skills in animatronic technology and shady business practices. Yes, you heard that right, sole owner, as there's no mention of two different owners, only one.
The genius who created Fazbear Entertainment.
The owner is a bit of a... well, he's kind of a sentimental guy, I guess.
He decided to disregard the two characters of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie for this separate location, being two Springlock suits that employees could use to walk around during the day. This is due to previous misfortunate accidents surrounding the mechanic, most likely leading to bad publicity surrounding the company. We know that Golden Freddy, or Fredbear, and Spring Bonnie aren't publicly used characters because in the pizzeria present in the movie, we see no attributed posters or products with these two specific characters. We can also recognize the existence of previous Springlock accidents and Fredbear's Family Diner as a previous pizzeria, or an unnamed location that parallels it from the games, with Vanessa's explanation of these being, keyword, old Springlock suits.
Springlocks, they're on all the older models.
Now, we could probably chalk up the Spring Bonnie suit to being a suit that resonates with William, for whatever reason, and Golden Freddy being that of Fredbear. But the existence of these other suits indicates a previous location, or even locations, set somewhere in the 70s by William Afton before the movie's events even happened. This is where I think Afton Robotics comes to play. See, William had a great understanding of robot technology and animatronic craftsmanship and didn't let his skills go to waste. Just like with what we see with the Funtime animatronics in the game series, William would build animatronics and even Springlock suits for different businesses and companies to rent out. This is why we see the leftover costumes of Shadow Freddy, Sparky the dog, and even the Ella doll left in the storage room in the pizzeria. Sparky could have most likely been used and rented at Sparky's, the diner or coffee shop that we see MatPat, or in this case Ness, work at in the film. This is also why we see animatronics like Mr. Cupcake and even the Torture Freddy head featured prominently in the film. William either made or later modified these specifically to kill. He is instead the main engineer of Fazbear Entertainment, not that of Henry Emily, a character referenced in both the books and games who is explained to be the maker of the animatronics in the series. Now, this is where I believe that William may have found out about the ideas of possession in machinery and animatronic behavior. With the past revelations of a Springlock incident leading to an employee's death, William began to study the strange behaviors that were happening to old and retired Springlock suits. He had always been extra careful to not trip the Springlocks, and at this point had become a pro at wearing these Iron Maidens. However, one of these locations that rented these suits out weren't so lucky. I bet William had looked into the incident and found the material necessary for a proper possession into an animatronic body, Remnant. For a quick refresher, Remnant is the idea that an energy of sorts can attach souls to inanimate objects and manifest itself into a metallic-like material. William was instantly fascinated, the idea of eternal life, and one that could create a new family. Instead, William decided to start fresh. So for this location, he designed the likes of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Notably not being Springlock suits, but entire characters that could interact on and off the stage. This was the big selling point. These were animatronics that could interact with guests and children alike, even being able to walk around during the day. The place became an instant hit, opening in the year 1979. Which closely matches with real-world popular chains like Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese. and with this behind the scenes footage, taken from 8-Bit Ryan, about the restaurant's registration papers, being issued on April 5th of 1979. Overall, this made the general public forget about a previous Springlock incident surrounding one of Fazbear Entertainment's previous locations. But I do believe that there had to be a Springlock incident of some sort for William to retire the idea of Springlock suits as a whole for this new location. Vanessa also suggests how dangerous these suits are to Mike in the movie, meaning she knows the risk attributed with these Springlock mechanics, maybe from a first-hand experience. Later on in the timeline, we meet Mike Schmidt, a 12-year-old boy, and his younger brother named Garrett. They're both on a picnic camping trip with their family, specifically in the year of 1987. Yep, cue the funny Markiplier clip. This is something we know for a fact, thanks to the first 20 pages of the official movie's novelization, which at the time of uploading this hasn't been fully released yet. But this is where it's importantly revealed that Mike Schmidt is 25 years old during the events of the movie. If we know that he refers to being 12 during the incident when talking to Vanessa, and the movie takes place in the year 2000, a little math will get us to the conclusion that the picnic is set in the year 1987. While Garrett is playing with his orange airplane toy, he's suddenly snatched and put into the back seat of William Afton's car. Michael, given no time to react, catches a glimpse of his brother being driven away. He is simply unable to catch up with the speeding vehicle, never to see Garrett again. For 3 whole years, the family tries to find his missing brother, believing in Mike's story about a man who took him. Now, you might have noticed that I haven't necessarily elaborated on William Afton's actual motive in this timeline yet. That's mainly because the movie itself doesn't directly give us any explanations behind the reasoning of William Afton's murders. Sounds a lot like the games. However, I feel like there may be some hints laid out that might point us in a certain direction. Many have pointed out that the William Afton we see in the movie and the version of William Afton we see in the Silver Eyes novel are very similar, with many different elements of the character being adapted for the film. We even see the spring lockening, is that a word? Of William towards the end, trapped in the Spring Bonnie costume, even getting dragged away by the animatronics in the same way from the Silver Eyes, with slight deviations of course. With this, I'm going to say that this version of William Afton is a very big family guy, but with a controlling methodology with the only family he actually has, that being Vanessa. He truly thinks the children he stuffed into the animatronic suits are his new family. His yellow rabbit persona is meant to father all of these lost souls in his own twisted way. This is something we sort of see in the Silver Eyes novel. In the film, William says things like, "Welcome, children," and when talking to Vanessa, says,
You may have forgotten your loyalties, but I assure you, they have not.
Vanessa was a daughter that he couldn't influence, couldn't control, someone who wanted to change her life course, and William couldn't let that happen. His idea of a family was going in a south direction, so he kidnapped some random kid, that being Garrett Schmidt, and tried again. During this time, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place was only doing better and growing substantially, as William Afton recalls the place being really popular in the 80s when talking to Mike on his first shift.
This place was huge in the 80s with the kids.
Sometime during this photo, the one that Vanessa shows Mike when referring to her father, is taken, as it would have taken place after Garrett's disappearance, during the 80s, and before the missing children's incident. From the snippet we get in the official security footage unlisted YouTube video from Universal Pictures, we know that this incident took place at a birthday event at the location.
Local pizzeria where 5 children who were attending a birthday event suddenly and mysteriously vanished into thin air.
5 children were murdered, all by William Afton in his yellow rabbit costume, starting with Fritz, then Gabriel, Susie, Cassidy, and finally Jeremy. He stuffed their bodies into the 4 main animatronics at the location, and maybe even a spare Springlock suit, somewhere they'd never find them. Specifically, I think that the MCI, Missing Children's Incident, actually happened on Vanessa's birthday, as it seems she feels semi-responsible for her father's actions. This is why she visits the location so often, besides the time she tries to keep Mike out of the loop about, her father. She wants to check up on her friends, the ones who attended her party so many years ago, and who were ultimately robbed of their childhoods. This event shut the pizzeria down, as explained by Vanessa sometime in the 80s.
But you said some kids went missing?
Sure. Back in the 80s.
We can also come to the assumption that the MCI must have been placed sometime between 1987 to the year 1990, as we know that in the picture Vanessa shows of her and her father, we see Garrett's airplane toy. This must have been taken before the closing of the pizzeria, which places it after 1987. And like I said earlier, Vanessa says the place closed down in the 80s. As news began to pick up and parents continued to threaten, William Afton had to leave his business and change names, along with his daughter. This would mean that the pizzeria lasted for around 10 or so years. This would also back up the small statement shown on the official Freddy's Fan Zone website, a Universal Pictures operated website masquerading as a nostalgic fan wiki of sorts. This statement directly says that it's such a tragedy that this wonderful place had to close down so suddenly. In the year 1990, Abby Schmidt was born. We know this because Abby is described to be 10 years old in the events of the movie, either being born through May 1989 to April 1990. As the family continued to mourn the loss of Garrett, Abby may have been unfortunately seen as a sort of replacement for the family. Later on, Mike's mother passes away due to strangely unexplained circumstances. We know this couldn't have happened very early on because Mike says to Vanessa that she died a little while back.
Her mom died a little while back.
On the timeline, this would have probably happened about 5 or so years before the events of the movie, so maybe around 1995. Now, not much is known about Mike's dad, except that he couldn't handle the loss of his wife. This implies he also could have died or left the family as a whole. However, something tells me that if we think he's as important as most say he is, that we might see him sometime in the future. Who knows? All I know is that he is mostly disregarded from the film as a whole, with most of the prioritization on Mike's family and his dreams being placed on his mother and younger brother. Since the pizzeria and Fazbear Entertainment as a whole is now completely abandoned, William set out for new career choices along with Vanessa. Able to land a job as a career counselor, William is still able to semi-control his business behind the scenes sometime in the 90s. The abandoned pizzeria is now being used as a way for William to get rid of potential threats, like Mike Schmidt and the previous night guard we see before him, whose name is Bob. With the help of his daughter, Vanessa, he is able to get security guards in unfavorable positions to be later killed by the controlled animatronics. And the great news is he doesn't have to pay any of them. Now, we can finally get to the events of the actual movie. This is one of the dates we know for sure, due to the security camera footage at the beginning of the movie, right after Mike FNAF 2 Withered Foxy jump scares a random dad at the mall. The date on the security camera reads April 6th, set in the year 2000. And no, it's not June 4th for you non-Americans. The first actual event shown in the movie is the death of the previous night guard working the shift, Bob. I'd go on a limb and say that this probably takes place not long before Mike actually gets the security gig, maybe a week or so before. At the very least, we know he's the previous night guard, due to the loosened bolt during the 2 Torture Freddy scenes. The events of the movie follow Mike Schmidt, now being a 25-year-old who's having problems holding a job for too long. Talk about being relatable. We see that Mike is obviously struggling with dealing with the earlier loss of his younger brother Garrett in 1987 and with his younger sister Abby, who he's struggling to connect with and fears he may lose due to their aunt. From then on, it's believed that the rest of the movie takes place from a day-to-day period, besides the flashbacks and maybe debatably the end of the movie. This would mean that Mike starts his shift on April 8th, a Saturday at 12 a.m. in the year 2000. And to not bore any of you with a deep explanation of the events of the movie, the 5 nights he spends at the pizzeria would lead us to believe that both him, Abby, and Vanessa all leave the ruined location on Wednesday, April 12th. After this, we see Vanessa brought to a hospital and William Afton suffering in the kitchen of his own pizzeria, where we can assume that both of these events happen later on the same day. With his last official piece of dialogue, William Afton claims to his family that he'll come back because he knows he will. The idea of Remnant and an eternal life stuck as an animatronic of his own making has polluted his mind, accepting his fate as Springtrap, where it's absolutely inevitable that we'll see him again in a later sequel. I mean, have you seen how much money this movie made? And with this, I can officially bring this movie's complete timeline to a close. I hope, as a whole, that this video helped you better understand the events that happened in the FNAF movie's timeline, even if you disagree with a lot of what I said. I had to come to some strange conclusions in order to make a neat timeline that is able to satisfy a narrative from beginning to end. And like I said at the beginning, there's no doubt that both the future sequels, or even the movie's novelization, will prove me wrong drastically. Anyway, to keep it short, I just wanted to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you all later. Take care.